Charlie, the difference in the developmental track with Austin as a first-year starter compared to having Jackson for 2 years, just kind of who all is involved in that, and kind of where is Austin? Is he where you want to be? Just what's the evaluation right now?
Yeah, it's a huge process, right? I think Jackson, it's interesting comparing Austin to Jackson because we had Jackson on 3 separate years, and honestly, all 3 were totally different players, you know what I mean? So it's interesting with Austin, he's had 2 years here to develop, but he's never, played full-time. He's never been the guy, the starter, all of the things that come with that. And so I would say overall he's on a great track. He's certainly much further ahead than Jackson was when he first got here in 2022 because that was Jackson's first year in the system compared to Austin having those years built in. And it's certainly a collective effort, from Coach Kiffin, obviously, and the great, details and mentorship that he can give Austin, his experience throughout the years. Coach Judge does an unbelievable job of mentoring the quarterbacks, getting their minds ready, prepping them, teaching them coverages, defenses, all the, different things that you need to do at the quarterback position. So I'm very grateful that, we have Coach Kiffin, we have Coach Judge, we have several other staff members, Coach Fisher, Dane Stevens that, work with our quarterbacks and do a phenomenal job developing that position.
What are your thoughts on the running back room so far in fall camp? Have you seen improvement from last year so far?
Definitely I've seen improvement. I think it's a good group of guys with some different skill sets. Kewan Lacey has a little bit more of that home run threat, that we certainly need and that we've had in the past, but I think he'll be able to replicate that for us. And then Logan and DT are guys that, are very powerful runners. They're very disciplined runners, know how to run. They do a good job of not getting you into negative play situations and staying ahead of the sticks, which is very important, when your explosive offense and you're trying to push the ball down the field. When you run the ball, you obviously want it to be efficient and effective, and all 3 of those guys do a good job with that.
Lane has mentioned how the outside wide, or just wide receiver in general, not just the outside wide receivers, could be a strength of this team. Do you kind of see that too, and what do you make of that room and the competition daily there?
Yeah, we've been really blessed with the receiver position here, since I've been here, having lots of good players. I think the thing that sticks out with this year's group, and I think coaches said it, is just the depth of the room where, we feel we're going to be able to play 6, 7, guys deep, which will certainly help us as the year progresses, right? Because you want to be able to rotate those guys, keep them fresh, and that's something that we certainly see able, and I definitely think it'll be a strength of our offense.
Have you seen Caleb ODM make that transition? For kind of first thing we noticed when camp started of shifting to tight end.
I think he's done a great job with it. That's been a really good move for him. I think it really highlights the things that he does really well of being a bigger bodied slot, being able to be in the core to do certain things in the run game, being able to flex out as the single receiver. It allows us to be a lot more multiple with him compared to him just sticking as an outside receiver, kind of like he played in the spring where, hey, he's just standing out there. And there's some things that he certainly does well at that, but maybe some other things that don't use his strengths to the best of his ability. So I think put him at tight end, you're able to get really creative, do a whole bunch of things, and allows us to utilize more personnel groupings too, where, in some groups he may be a slot, in some groups he may be a true tight end, in some groups he may be an outside receiver. So that's been a very interesting move for us, and I'm excited to see where that goes.
Devin Harper is a true freshman offensive lineman. He just continues to kind of stand out in the time we get to see. What have y'all seen from him? And I know it's like the hardest position to break in at as a true freshman, but what could make him the exception to that?
Yeah, Devin has relentless effort. I mean, for a true freshman, he plays extremely hard. He's extremely talented, very athletic. So those are the things that, number one, stand out. He's got to continue, obviously, to work on the playbook, his strength, all the other traits that come with time, you know what I mean? But this is probably the most talented true freshman lineman I think that we've seen here since I've been here, with a guy that's got a very elite skill set, and he's got the right mindset, tenacity that you want for that position to play early.
There may not be just one thing, but did you choose to work on anything specific with Austin in the offseason? Was there one emphasis area?
Yeah, I think with Austin, there's certainly several things that we wanted to work on. I think number one, it was a big deal of just him taking over his leadership with the team, because you're replacing a guy with Jackson who was an alpha type guy who had the locker room and had a certain personality about him. And so I think it was a big deal for us of transitioning Austin number one, into that leadership style and letting him be who he is. He doesn't need to be Jackson Dart. He doesn't need to be Matt Corral. He could be Austin, and he could be exactly who he is. And it's been really cool seeing his transition over over time and how he's handled that. And then certainly there's things too, like we knew the certain throws that he throws really well, and we'll try to formulate our offense, that accentuate those throws. But then there's certain throws that, he needed to get better at, and we've continued to work on that, from spring ball to summer to fall camp, continuing till today. And so we'll continue to work on those things.
What have you seen out of Trinidad and the role that he may be asked to do behind Austin?
Yeah, Trinidad, man, he's been very impressive lately. I think early on in camp, he was kind of learning the playbook and picking things up, and it's hard, coming in the summertime and getting caught up to speed on our system. But once he's kind of gotten it nailed down, he's a baller, man. He can go play. He really shows up and move the ball periods where, it's real football. You're playing down distance situations, ultra competitive guy. And so it's been really cool to see, his development even in the last week and how far he's come. So I'm excited to see as he continues to progress.
How big has been having the continuity of the coaching staff that you guys have on the offensive side of the ball, especially for Austin?
Yeah, I think that's huge because we've got so many new players. It's really great because I think as a staff, we're all on the same page of what the plays are, what we're running, what we're trying to accomplish, and now we're able to let our coaches kind of go and, get all the details nailed down. It's not like, we're breaking in a bunch of new coaches and, Coach Kiffin or myself, we're having to kind of teach the details and what we're trying to do, and then they've got to go do it, and we've got to make sure that it's being, relayed the right way. We're all on the same page of what we're trying to accomplish, so now we can really hone in and get our guys down on the detail because there are so many new players.
Charlie, you look like you have more depth at running back and at wide receiver. Do you anticipate rotating them more than you did last year?
I certainly do. I think that's definitely been a big emphasis for us, even, in the portal in December of knowing that, hey, we need to be deeper, as the season progresses and have more guys available and continuing to fight for every guy that we could get on our roster. And that's what's been really cool to see is that, we're able to have a couple guys banged up in practice and the next guys go in and it doesn't feel like a major drop-off.
Even though Austin's been here, how do you walk that line of, making sure he manages the game and kind of overemphasize some of those things for a first-year starter versus letting him go out and make plays and do some of the things that, we saw in the Georgia game?
Yeah, it's a difficult balance. It's interesting because on one hand, you got a guy who's been here for 3 years. On one, I think he's still 19 years old. You know what I mean? And it's, he hasn't played in as many games. So it's certainly a fine line. I think the cool thing is now you do have the coach-to-player headset communication, right? So, between Coach Kiff and myself, I think we're able to give him some good reminders, whether it's in, practice situations, scrimmage situations and all that, to kind of help lead him as the game progresses. And, I think as the season starts, we'll get to see him grow and continue to get better and better.
Going into your fourth year, what's kind of been the biggest change for maybe you on or off the field for you?
Well, I love living in Oxford, so I feel very settled. Being a coach's son, I think this is the longest I've ever lived anywhere since I lived in South Bend when my dad was the head coach at Notre Dame. So it's really awesome just being in a great community with tons of really, really good people. So it's obviously great to feel settled. It's amazing being with, coaching staff, continuing to get to work with Coach Kiffin and the rest of our coaches who really all came back from a year ago. So, now it's just all sights are focused on, doing the best job that we can do as an offensive staff for our players to put them in the best situation to go, win as many games as possible, and go help our team win.
Go ahead. Just say, perception out there that the offensive line wasn't very good last year, but yet you did a lot on offense.
Right.
What's your feeling about this year's offensive line?
Yeah, I think we always obviously have a very high standard around here, for offense and how we should produce both in the pass and the run game. And, I think it's no secret, and Coach obviously talked about, we didn't run the ball good enough last year at times, certainly in SEC games and times when it mattered. And so I think Coach Garrison has done a great job of bringing some new guys in that we feel are going to be really, really good for us and really good players. And I think we are, really good at the top, and we're continuing to build that depth to be, 7, 8, 9 guys deep, which is the goal. But I feel very, very confident in that group and what they're doing. We've got some really good leaders up front that have stepped up, and I'm excited to see how they do this year. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.